All right, heart of the matter. Thanks everyone for joining me once again for another episode this week. Please go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our podcast channels on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and click that 5-star rating on Apple. It goes a long way to help us fight the algorithm, so we can get these really great discussions and interviews out to as many rock and metal fans as possible. And speaking of great discussions, I'm really looking forward to this one today as we're heading over to the historic and amazing city of Athens, Greece, as we'll be talking all things crossover thrash metal in depth today. As I'd like to welcome my guest today, we've got with me author Alex Anesiadis. We're going to be talking about his new book titled Tear It Down, How Crossover Bridged Metal and Hardcore Punk. Alex, man, thanks for joining me. How you doing, bud? Great to have you on.
Hello, Matt. I'm so happy to join your show, man. I'm thrilled. I'm really thrilled.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, Alex, shoot, man, it's been about I think 17 to 18 years since I visited Athens. I had a great journey around not just the city but the whole country itself. Loved it. I mean, the culture, the history, the food. Oh man, the food. I really missed that food there, man. um, but yeah, but one thing I wasn't aware of, it's funny when I visited there some years ago. Was really, I mean, obviously we know of some great bands that have come out of Greece over the years. But I didn't notice what a huge rock and metal scene that there really is in Greece, which really over the last, I'd say 10, 15 years has really taken off big time. Really I know it's got a lot of the heavy rock stoner bands, Thousand Mods, Planet of Zeus, Night Stalker. I mean, there's just a bunch of great, I mean, heavy psych bands like Villagers of Ionita City. That's a great band too. But crossover thrash, I never really equated Greece with hardcore and thrash.
You have to say, you have to. I have to mention that I'm really surprised because you have very good knowledge about the Greek scene, the Greek bands. It's kind of surprising. Yes, stoner metal, stoner hard rock, and stuff like that. Just like epic metal here is huge. But to be honest, hardcore and crossover was never huge here. Not huge. It was scarce. It was very rare to see a band like that. Just imagine the first hardcore band that played in Greece was in 1990, and it was Verbal Assault from New York City. And the next one was Agnostic Front, and it was 1999. I mean, a huge gap. Yeah. I got interested in crossover via DRI. I mean, I was listening to all kinds of, UK 82 Punk, GBAs, Discharge, and Slayer and stuff like when I was younger. I was 13 years old or something, 13, 14 years old. This kind of stuff are huge in Greece, still huge. Yeah, it's like, the UK punk scene is still huge.
Wow.
However, the crossover scene, the hardcore scene, especially the New York hardcore scene, was never huge. And back then it was even smaller. But what intrigued me into that kind of stuff was DRI. I got DRI's Fourth of Kind in 1994. I loved it. It wasn't UK 82 Punk. It wasn't metal. It was something different. I was intrigued, and this is where the wild ride begins, because I have found the DRI's address. And I sent a snail mail to Kurt Brecht to DRI. I didn't know it was Kurt. I sent it to DRI, and I said, "Okay, my name is Alex. I'm 14 years old, and I love your band, and I would like to see you in Greece. Blah 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 blah." And to my surprise, about 2 months later, I received a package from Kurt Brecht, with a handwritten letter. These are things that I still have. There was a handwritten letter and said, "Hello, Alex. I'm very happy, my friend, that you're a fan of our band. I would love to see you in Greece, in Thessaloniki, or wherever you are. Here are some pasta show tickets, and here are some flyers, and here is a poster, and here is this and this and that. It's for
Wow.
you. And I was like, whoa, man, these guys are so cool. They don't have, that rock star attitude or something like that.
Hmm.
So I started searching for this kind of bands. DRI brought Agnostic Front. Agnostic Front brought Chromax. Chromax brought Beyond Possession. Beyond Possession brought Leeway. And another thing is that uh, important records from the US and Giant Records unloaded a huge thousands of records in Greece in early 90s that were
Hmm.
those records were selling for peanuts. So I managed to get all the classic crossover records, Leeway, Born to Expire, Beyond Possession, all those records for next to nothing, because nobody knew them, and
Wow.
nobody wanted them back then.
Hmm.
So this is where the crazy ride started. I mean, I was always, I was always a fan of crossover, even though I loved, my UK '82 punk, my UK hardcore, the anarcho punk, oi,
Hmm.
new wave of British heavy metal, the American the American punk scene. But I was always, as long as I can remember myself, I was always in love with DRI and those kinds of bands.
Okay. So it all started with the Dirty Rotten Imbeciles is yeah,
Mhm.
what you're telling us, man. Yeah, great band, man. And one of the things too, when I first heard about, your name, obviously I discovered you right around, I think it was like 2020, 2019, when
Mhm.
you put this book out right here, Cross Over the Edge. Obviously it's an outstanding really reference to the bands that really made up the whole crossover scene throughout the globe, back in the 80s. I mean, you had names of bands in there that, like I said, from all over the world, places like Russia and even the Philippines, countries that, I mean, most people, including myself, wouldn't even know that there was a scene or had bands that played that kind of music. How did you really find out about? I mean, it was the whole DRI crossover thing. Did that really kick off, your, I guess, venture into just finding out what's out there? I mean, were you able to just, I guess, research when you were doing the book to find out about these bands? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the research is kind of my my strong points. My English are
Mhm.
not. Uh, but yeah, I was keeping notes all those years regarding
Okay.
any band that I can find. Any band from
Hmm.
all my favorite genres.
Okay.
So this is when I decided we were living when Crossover the Edge was released. We were living in Italy. We were living in Siena with my family.
Okay.
So I was in Siena. I was unbelievably bored. And I said I need to do something. I need to do something. So I
Hmm.
contacted Ian Glasper. I said, okay, I'm doing this research on those bands. I know those people, and you know
Hmm.
they're willing to offer me an interview. Would you help me get a contract? And he said, oh man, of course. So
Nice.
uh, I managed to see how I'm going. I managed to make a first plan of which bands are going to be included from
Hmm.
which period of time. Basically it was 1980 until 1989.
Okay.
So this was where the research started evolving, because I obviously missed in the first place some kind of some bands.
Hmm.
I wasn't familiar with some bands, especially from exotic places like Philippines, like you said. But
Hmm.
one thing brought another, and I managed to find them out through fanzines, through digital databases, uh,
Hmm.
through stuff like that. Regarding digital databases, while I was doing my PhD, I was heading to the London um, uh, Library of magazines, and
Okay.
uh, I, I have scanned and filed about 2,500 uh, magazines, fanzines from that era,
Wow.
all stored and digitized and filed in a hard disk. And
Wow.
even if you think it's crazy, yes, I've read them all. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow, man.
this is where I managed to get more info. But I also have to mention, Matt, that I have a very, very, very good memory. I can
Mhm.
remember nearly anything from my past,
Wow.
which is good and
Mm.
bad on the same time, right?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, but
wow, man. Yeah. No, it's amazing, I mean, once like you just kind of referenced it, what's even I think really cool about your personal story and it kind of it mirrors mine a little bit, which in terms of your educational background, but you definitely take the cake over me. But I mean, I did my master's in business administration, and my thesis and my business plan was on an extreme metal record label, which I eventually did out of LA called No Joke Records. But I mean, you did your dissertation, your PhD. I mean, you said that to me. I can't really. I mean, I started reading some of it. I'm gonna read that whole thing. I can't wait to dig into that thing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, basically, your dissertation was on really the crossover between punk, heavy metal, the music culture in the UK during the '80s, during the Margaret Thatcher governance. And so I mean, you're not only just human encyclopedias music, but you're literally a doctor, a professor of this, music. Talk about your decision into doing your dissertation on, what you did it on the crossover, punk and metal thing in the UK back in the '80s.
Oh man, thank you for your kind words. I don't know what to say. So I'm gonna I'm gonna skip this one somehow and tell you that my decision was based on one sole fact. That one sole fact was you have to do something that you really enjoy. So I
Hmm.
said, okay, I'm gonna do a PhD uh, on this because my background, my bachelor and masters have
Hmm.
nothing to do with that. So I
Hmm.
had to run an extra mile, learning new stuff, reading new bibliography, etc., etc. Because I moved
Hmm.
from business administration to media and arts, so it was
Hmm.
something totally different.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, but as I said, I needed to do something that really enjoyed me. Just like my partner, she did a PhD too in chemical engineering. So
Mm.
she loved what she did, and
Hmm.
she was a driving force. She told me, "Do what you want. Don't do something that you yeah, that you feel that you will feel terrible about it, or
Hmm.
you won't be happy." I was very
Hmm.
happy to pursue that
Hmm.
PhD, and I'm it, it was totally worth, the whole anxiety and stuff like that. But no, no,
Hmm.
no, it was totally worth it. No, no, not the anxiety.
Oh, well, like you said, it's true. If you're going to do something with that much research, it's got to be something you're passionate about, right? And so, obviously, you're very passionate about this music. And another reason why you're passionate about this music, I did read in Crossover the Edge that you have a collection of over 8,000 records, as you can see behind you right there,
Mm.
which I'm sure is getting probably closer to 10,000 now, because that was like 6, 7 years ago. How did you really get into collecting all these records? I mean, same thing. Where do you find and everything? Is it just, I mean, like I said, I've, I've, obviously just talked with a lot of people who are passionate about this music, but you're right up there, man, with the top in terms of passion between a PhD and 8,000 plus records, man. Where'd you find all these records?
Ah, man. Compliments again, Matt. Please don't make me blaspheme. Well, like I said before, in Greece, early 90s, getting records was way too cheap, way too cheap. Everybody
Mhm,
unloaded, you know, it's the
mhm,
records. And in our house, we had the records. because my older brother was a rockabilly and my sister was into new wave stuff, so we had records. So
Hmm.
I was young. I was very young, and I was checking out, the covers, the labels, etc., etc. So I got really into it.
Hmm.
Uh, Buying from so I started getting records from the usual Greek record shops.
Okay.
When I first traveled in the UK, it was 1998. A good friend of mine went there to study, and his mother was very anxious that he's going to drop out. So she told me, "Okay, I'm gonna send you in order to somehow persuade him to stay." Of course, I did, but uh, I had some money. I was starting, going over all over the place in the whole of England, finding records,
Hmm.
and they were selling for great records for peanuts again.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was, it was crazy. I started sending money to my friend then, and he was sending me records. And then I met another friend in Scotland, sending him money too, sending me records. I was telling them, you know what I like, uh, the bands I like, the style I like. Feel free to send me whatever you find there. Uh, so yes, it was like that. Then I started, buying from labels like Sound Idea Distribution in the US, like Abolition from US, via Maximum Rock and Roll.
Hmm.
Uh, it was quite easy to get records back then. Good
Hmm.
records for great
Cheap.
prices.
Hmm.
And since I was 13, 14 years old, I was buying records endlessly, all the time. I was searching
Hmm.
for records, buying records, and sometimes I have multiple copies of a record that I love, like Age of Coral or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, but it was, and when somebody went on a trip, I was sending him, okay, you gotta go there and buy me those records.
Ah, okay.
so
Yeah.
so there's a very funny story about that, because the last time we were in New York City with my partner, I was
Hmm.
unbelievably awfully tired, and so she was, because it was a very hot day, and I
Hmm.
think that it was like a heat wave, and we didn't find Generation Records, and then I saw the
Hmm.
Generation Records. Um, just 1 week before after we left, took out Agnostic Front's Victim in Pain re-release, and a
Hmm.
friend of mine from Greece went, that has nothing to do with hardcore or whatever. I'm listening. I told him, okay, you're gonna go there, you're gonna go buy me this record, or else blah blah blah, and he did, man. I don't
Wow.
know.
Well, you got some good friends, Alex. Alex, I gotta say, man. Now, Alex, let's get into talking about what you're here for. Obviously, the book here, Tear It Down, how crossover bridge metal and hardcore punk. As we were talking about your other book, Crossover the Edge, that was more, I would say, like a referenced encyclopedia on the bands that really comprised the genre itself. So tell us a little bit about Tear It Down, about, in relation
Mhm.
compared to, say, what you did with Crossover the Edge, and what can the readers, expect to find when they pick this book up.
Of course. Well, initially, Tear It Down was supposed to be Crossover the Edge Part 2.
Oh, okay.
Uh, all the stuff from Crossover the Edge would have been added, and it would make an extra new book with added pages, etc., etc. But my initial publisher told me on the last minute that no, we're not going to do that. I said, okay, I'm going to write a new book, and I'm going to include all the bands that were in Crossover the Edge 2 plus the new bands. But I'm going to take new interviews, I'm going to write new stuff to tackle all the to tackle this situation, because I don't want to do nothing with you. So I spoke with David Gamaz from Earth Island. I told him,
Mhm.
David, I'm doing this. Are you interested? He said me, yes, man, of course. Let's do it. So, what's the difference? The difference is that we have new bands that are included. Those new
Okay.
bands are about 70 bands.
Wow. Okay.
We have newer bands. We have some bands from the 1990s onwards.
Okay.
Some bands that are current bands, like In Human Nature or Combust.
Okay.
Uh, we have interviews with record labels, interviews with visual artists. I mean, there's a visual artist included in that everybody loves.
Hmm.
It's Sin Taggart. That
Oh, Sean Taggart. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Big time guy.
Uh,
Oh yes. Hmm.
uh, uh, there are bands that I missed from while I was writing Crossover the Edge, worldwide bands,
Hmm.
and overall it's on the same length as was Crossover the Edge. It's fun. It's about 220,000 words, but it's all new stuff. It's all and the
Awesome.
bands that were in Crossover the Edge, like Agnostic Front, Crumbsuckers, Leeway, there are
Mhm.
new interviews with new band members or other members, and all the flyers, all the pictures are totally different from Crossover the Edge. It's like a new it's a new book actually.
Yeah, no, very cool, man. Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, when we talk about defining this genre, subgenre of crossover, because it's a lot of times it's like people say the crossover or crossover thrash, or I mean, they use different terms. I mean, but the term crossover really, it's what I understand of it, and what I obviously have always perceived it to be, is really just the blending of metal, mostly thrash metal and punk. And there's a lot of debates, really on in terms of the terms of, is it more of a hardcore thing? Is it more metallic? I mean, it's because it's sort of in that gray area a lot of times, the crossover. Like I'll give you a good example. You just brought up a record before, Victim in Pain, Agnostic Front, right? Now, so many people will be like, yeah, that's kind of the first, really hardcore sort of crossover record. I always looked at that as really being a very hardcore punk record to me. I don't hear too much melody. Of course, Cause for Alarm, yes, that was complete, crossover. I think we can all agree on that. But how would you, I mean, you've obviously said you did a whole dissertation on this. How would you define or explain to just, someone who really wasn't familiar with this genre? How would you explain to them what this crossover is all about? How would you explain it to somebody in your own
Oh,
words?
yeah. Well, I would define crossover as when a band that belongs in either of two camps, or is it punk or is it metal, is it hardcore punk or is it metal, adds elements of the other camp.
Mhm.
Uh, this can be, for example, this can be a band like it can be very diverse. This can be very diverse. You have,
Mhm.
um, hardcore thrash bands such as Cryptic Slaughter,
Mhm.
that they are bordering with fastcore, or you have bands like Leeway that are more metallic, and
Mhm.
they add also some hip hop, some New York hip hop elements. We have
Mhm.
bands like Cro-Mags that sound like a blend between Bad Brains, Motorhead, and Discharge. You
Mhm.
have bands like what GBH did on Midnight Madness and Beyond, which is mildly metallic punk, UK punk. It's
Mhm.
all these are perspectives of crossover. Uh, when people say this is crossover, most of the times they're talking about DRI,
Mhm.
SOD. This is their perception of crossover, but it's much, or suicidal tendencies. Join the army.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
these are just these are just examples. There are bands like Attitude Adjustment, right?
Mhm.
They're just in between hardcore and metal. Just in between. There are
Mhm.
some songs that are hardcore, some songs that are more metal. you can figure out what it is. There are bands like Broken Bones from the UK. Broken Bones are they punk or are they metal? Some of their songs, and sometimes they even become thrash metal in the records like in later records like Bone Crusher. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very complicated. It's very easy to find out, but it's very complicated to define.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I would say that crossover, general overall, is any fusion between metal and punk and hardcore punk uh, that can express or expose both elements.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, uh, Metallica are definitely metal. Yes, they do have the more punk stuff or the more hardcore style, but it's definitely metal. There is hardcore in their music, there is punk in their
Mm-hmm.
music, but it's definitely metal, right? Slayer, uh, Son of Mercy, Hell Awaits, definitely metal. Raining
Mm-hmm.
Blood, on the other hand, it has so much hardcore stuff included, so much hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, bands like uh, bands like Anthrax. Anthrax have a definite metal direction among the living. Has some hip hop and some crossover tendencies, but it's metal. It's
Mm-hmm.
you can say this is crossover. It can appeal to crossover crowds, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
crossover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and no, it's really cool because, like I said, there's so many really, reading what I've read so far from you, from the Course Over the Edge, even another book that I started reading that you sent me that we'll talk about a little later. It's one of the things that sticks out is how you mentioned that the best thing that ever happened to metal was punk. And as you say, without it, there would be no bands like an Iron Maiden, which, it's always funny, right? Because Steve Harris, he always vehemently denies every time he's asked about, oh, there's all these punk influences. He's always talking about how he despises punk. He hates it. There was no influence. Listen, whether I think we all know whether he was directly, or, influenced or not musically, maybe just by being around London in that time, you know what I mean, when punk was taking off, you can't deny that obviously there's a lot of punk influences in Maiden. And I think that's what obviously, you make a good point because that's what made it different, a band like Iron Maiden from all those other new wave of British heavy metal bands at the time. I think a lot of people probably maybe didn't like the aesthetics of punk, which maybe was what turned them off, but there's no doubt that they were influenced by it. But like you just brought up too, um, Slayer, right? Jeff Hanneman was a huge punk guy. That was his, I mean, he was in punk bands before coming to Slayer. Metallica, as we know, they were very heavily influenced by bands like the Ramones and the Misfits.
Misfits.
Yeah, and so without punk, there's no thrash metal, and therefore, obviously we don't have much, of crossover either. But um, talk a little bit, I guess, about that, about how hardcore punk, because before obviously when people sometimes I think when they think of punk, they immediately think of like, maybe,
Sex
old school
Pistols.
punk, Sex Pistols, bingo, exactly, right? And then of course later on more of that popular punk. If you talk to someone that was from a younger generation, when you say punk, they're thinking, oh,
Green
Blink
Day.
182 or Green Day, exactly, right? So, I mean, talk a little bit about now hardcore punk because hardcore punk obviously was really when it started. Punks now started really, I think, started becoming crossover. Really was with that because it got so much more heavier and more raw and more aggressive. So talk a little bit about hardcore punk. Really, I think really becoming the initial sort of step to what we eventually recognize now is crossover.
First of all, it's very, very funny actually because I just spoke today with Gary Bussell. Gary Bussell is a vocalist or guitarist, I don't remember, of the Gonads, a UK Oi band. Gary Bussell
Okay.
was writing, uh, coined the term Oi. And he
Okay.
was writing in Sounds and New Musical Express magazine. And I spoke to him today because he posted a photo of him and Iron Maiden in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big Iron Maiden fan, and he has written the first biography of Iron Maiden. And I told him, Gary, uh, I mean, with a guy like you, always being with them, why did Steve Harris hated punk? He was so anti-punk, and he
Hmm.
told me he wasn't anti-punk. All the members were once skinheads. Paul Diano
Hmm.
loved the Specials,
Okay.
and and what's his name? The guitarist of Iron Maiden, Dave Murray.
Murray. Dave Murray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dave Murray. You know that he played in a band, late 1970s, the Secret Ones. Um, he was a punk rocker. I can send you.
Oh, really?
I can send you the song and the 7 inch. It's like, he was a punk, but
Okay.
Steve Harris wanted to differentiate himself from being a Roxy band. Roxy band, the band is a punk band that plays in the Roxy Club of London. And
Hmm.
even though he was friends with Cockney Rejects, and they shared two common loves. They shared the love for UFO, the band,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
their love for West Ham, the team. I think that
Mm.
there was a minor rivalry between them because
Mm.
the hooligans of West Ham considered Cockney Rejects to be the club's band, and
Mm.
Steve
Okay.
Harris and Iron Maiden wasn't the club's band. So it's like
Ah.
it's very complicated, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, so responding to the initial question, though, uh, I have hardcore punk. I think that it was the best thing that happened to metal because
Hmm.
if it wasn't for it, all the bands who sounded like Dokken and Rat and
Hmm.
Halloween, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Uh, it gave an aggression and a power that metal didn't initially have. It was metal was more melodic, more dramatic, more melancholic,
Hmm.
lyrical. So it gave the aggression, and as you can see nowadays, the last 30 years, it's the aggression of metal that keeps it going, that keeps it widespread in the youth. I mean, okay, there are bands that are more lyrical or more theatrical, like Ghost, if you consider them metal, but
Uh, don't even start me
no.
with that band. I mean, I know. Not a
But
fan of Ghosts, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, uh,
Mm.
but the extreme metal, even if it was Slayer, or if it was
Hmm.
Death, the band, or if it
Hmm.
was bands like Mayhem or Darkthrone,
Hmm.
they had their first share of hardcore punk, not into their music maybe, but definitely into their listening sessions, into their culture. They're more closer to to what hardcore punk meant
Hmm.
rather than the
Hmm.
glam metal scene. The,
Absolutely.
uh, so it was a fresh breath, I think, for and I also think that it was metal was a fresh breath for hardcore punk too, because you know uh, uh, bands like Agnostic Front wouldn't have evolved, right?
Hmm. Yep.
uh, Agnostic Front did so many records. Every record is different to one another up until 2005 or something. Or all their records are totally different. You have bands like Marauder that are
Hmm.
very, very, very metallic, but they're still
Hmm.
hardcore.
Hmm.
Uh, it offered both of them the chance to be more widespread, because this is what a hybrid does. Uh, uh, when a hybrid, like crossover, is considered to be authentic, this hybrid can appeal to both camps. Both camps can accept it. They say, okay, this is authentic.
Hmm.
Leeway are authentic. Uh,
Hmm.
Suicidal tendencies are authentic.
Hmm.
Those bands were authentic, right? Gangrene,
Hmm.
of course, they were authentic.
Sure. Hmm.
Uh, Broken Bones, Sacrilege, what this church did though in Grave New World wasn't authentic, right? Everybody was
Hmm.
bashing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in terms of authenticity, you know that better than me. It's like something very strong in communities like hardcore punk and metal. If you're authentic or a poser, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So when this blend is authentic, it gains more ground to more people. It
Yeah.
expands.
Agreed. Yeah. No, you're right. And you brought up a good point, because if you really look at, like you said, if without hardcore punk, there would be no death metal, there'd be no black metal, because really hardcore punk was sort of the first, genre or subgenre of rock that they, like you said, they removed any type of melody. There's just no melody involved, and that's exactly what death metal really built upon was hardcore punk, maybe with a little more, musical, technicality or whatever, longer songs, maybe not as short as songs and so forth. But it's exactly, hardcore punk was the first thing that really was just very, type of music. It was very raw and very, like I said, void of any type of melody. And there's a thing, there's a few other things too that you mentioned about both metal and punk. There's two things in particular. One is that when we talk about musically, they have no limits, really, even up till today, right? When it comes to musical experimentation, I mean, there's so many subgenres, iterations of both metal and punk. Um, and like you said, the second is in regards that really, like you said, how metal also benefited punk. We already know, as we were just talking about, right, how punk really helped metal, but punk benefited, from metals, like as you mentioned in Crossover the Edge, the professionalism as well as its technical proficiency. And to
Hmm.
me, those are really the two components and really pillars of the crossover, foundation. Really is, there isn't an umbrella like most other genres, like metal and punk in general. There's definitely, I think, lines within crossover that, within it musically, that if you crossed it, it completely removes itself really from that sound and style. And to me, I think what makes it such a great sound, really, and style of metal and heavy rock is, as you mentioned, is really the technical prowess and musicianship of the players, along with that professionalism and seriousness throughout the creation and production of the music itself that you mentioned, especially, as bands progressed, I think, from album to album. And a great example I'll use is taking one of my favorite crossover bands, Crumbsuckers. You have really that, the traditional sort of hardcore punk thrash sound of the first record, Life of Dreams, right? But then a couple years later, when you go to Beast on My Back, I mean, that was a complete, I mean, wow, a 180, right? I mean, the progressive angle and the signature time changes and those amazing leads by Chuck Linehan on there. I mean, that was such a different record. The progression from that record, one to the next, was amazing. And just in general, when you look at, bands like Suicidal with Rocky George, such an underrated sort of semi-virtuoso guitarist. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so many of these type of bands, within crossover. DRI even obviously expanded on their approach as well as they progressed. So to me, the musicianship was really on par with the thrash bands, and because it had the hardcore punk embedded into it, I think that sometimes it's what gets overlooked, unfortunately. So I guess what my question is, I mean, you had guys like Michael Gibbons and Leeway, amazing guitarists, right? I mean, and rest in peace, Michael. Love that guy, great dude. Um, Adam Siegel from Excel, another amazing guitarist. I mean, these guys are so proficient in instruments. So to me, I think that's what sort of gets overlooked with crossover.
I definitely agree. What is funny with the Greek, the Greek metalheads, is that they consider, all hardcore to be tuneless and bad players and blah blah. And when they listen to bands like Bad Brains or the Leeway, they go like, "Whoa, what's that?" Say,
Mm-hmm.
guys, never judge. Not all bands sound like the Crass, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Not all bands sound like Conflict.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I'm always telling them, that hardcore punk is as big as metal. It has so many different subgenres, so many different fusions, so many different stuff that you can find through its route. So it's, you know, there are good players and bad players, just like in metal, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Regarding the good players, when the players are good, uh, they're phenomenal. You mentioned Mike Gibbons. Mike Gibbons,
Hmm.
he such a kind soul. I was
Oh yeah.
supposed to, yeah, I was supposed to meet him, but sadly, I'm not. This didn't happen.
Hmm.
Mike Gibbons was phenomenal, phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Hmm.
Uh, Nihan, Paris from Chromags,
Paris Mayu. Oh yeah.
Paris
Hmm.
from Agros right now, not Chromags.
Agos. Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, but Adam, you mentioned Adam Siegel. Beyond Possession, Beyond Possession guys, they all sound. It's like taking a Rush record, and put it on
Hmm.
78, and quadruple the speed of it. They're
Hmm.
just mental. There are so
Hmm.
many. RKL, Rich Kills on LSD.
Hmm.
You can more. You can get wilder than that. Agnostic
Hmm.
Front, with the exception of any stigma. Okay. Okay, love you, Vinny. Love you, love you.
I
No.
know. I know.
Ludicrous, Ludicrous,
Hmm.
man.
Oh man.
They were playing. They were incorporating jazz and classical music into
I know.
crossovers. Uh, Nuclear Assault.
Oh
Uh, uh,
man.
Suicidal Tendencies, Rocky George, like you said, Rocky is phenomenal. I have seen him
Phenomenal.
live once with Chromags,
Hmm.
early 2000s. And he was playing prior to the gig. He was playing an acoustic guitar flamenco. And we were all speechless. It was like, what? He was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
he was dancing on his guitar. He was like, come on, man, this is not real. It's
He's
uh,
yeah. I just saw him. I just saw him a couple weeks ago with the Lewis Idol band, and he still can
Mhm.
do it. I mean, he's still amazing. Yeah.
There were amazing players, but they weren't just amazing. They were like crazy. Their music was
Hmm.
crazy. It was like something, you know, something that it sounds like, it will stick to your head. But uh, right now, it's not just sticking in your head. You're going to rediscover many things as you listen to the music.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I always discover many things. Uh, Sorry from jumping questions, but I have also to mention something due to the prior question, in regards
Hmm.
to the prior question about how hardcore punk benefited metal. You know that the whole issue, the whole debate about who invented the blast beat. Okay, the blast beat in music was invented by the jazz artists in the 1930s or something like that. But in
Okay.
rock music, the blast beat, it was bands like Asocial from Sweden, and
Hmm.
uh, DRI on the song No Sense,
Hmm.
1983. But the first metal band that played the blast beat was Death on their demo, on the 1984 demo.
Hmm.
Uh, but the funny thing here is that the drummer on this demo is Eric Brecht of DRI,
Oh wow.
the guy that played the blast beat on the DRI record.
Wow. I didn't know that. Very
Yeah,
cool.
Eric Brecht. If you listen to the Beyond the Unholy Grave, the song, it has
Hmm.
blast beats since 1984. Nobody ever
Wow.
played that stuff in metal.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there you go, right there. See a good little piece of history. I had no idea that was the first blast beat. Yeah, and you talk too. As you mentioned, speaking again of how punk benefited metal and metal benefited punk. It was not only really punk music that influenced metal, but the DIY mentality, which and that whole punk rock ethos as well, that spread into metal, right? Going back to the 70s and the new wave of British heavy metal, who like, just like the punk rock scene, really had to self-release their own music. They formed their own labels and had their own promoters for shows. So really punk, reshaped the rock and roll, really music business itself and the business format, really, of how the scene and the community really operated within itself. I mean, while obviously, as you mentioned, traditional hard rock bands, they're just sitting around waiting around to get signed the old fashioned way. And that new format that punk created, I mean, that resonated globally with these underground rock scenes, which really led it to becoming a sort of standard, way of the musical pipeline to success. Obviously, until maybe about 20, plus years ago, once, streaming took over and everything. But I think that DIY punk rock ethos was, to me at least, I think that was just as important, if not more so, than the musical influence of punk itself.
Well, I blame the big labels for that.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
blame the big label, first of all, the big labels, and then the promoters. In Europe, generally in Europe, the promoters are, oh man, it's like, you have festivals like Keep It True or Up the Hammers or something like that, which is strictly heavy metal, but not any kind of heavy metal, strictly heavy, epic power metal or doom metal, not even thrash, because they consider thrash to be, a bastard hybrid or something of right now. Europe is things in Europe are very separated, and because Europe took over the whole thing in metal with all the big labels, the big festivals, etc., things have been very, very conservative in that on that issue. I mean, Greeks, Italians, Germans. These are the three countries right now, along with Scandinavia, are the 3-4 countries in Europe and maybe in the world that they're very, very conservative and very fanatic about their metal. They consider the metal. This is metal. I'll drop you an example. I have many metalhead friends that they consider Raining Blood not to be metal. I have many metal friends that consider records like Justice and Justice for All by Metallica not being metal enough. It's all right here. It's all about Manowar and their clones. Bands like Manila Road. They're great bands. Okay, Manila Road, Leeds Lord. These bands are great bands, but
sure,
you can't go on the whole of your life with one style. This style, they consider this to be the pure, the true heavy metal, and all the others are false. So
the purists, as you saying, right? Yeah,
they're purists and elitists on the same time. So what can you do about it? That's how the scenes are totally separated in Europe.
I know, because
it's people have become very conservative in every aspect of their life. So it's I had some criticism regarding the third book I wrote, Heroes of Metal Underground, because they said he's a punk rocker, he's a punk. What has to do with what does he has to do with that? And I explained to them that many of those bands had a punk background or punk connections or punk friends or punks were playing into their bands. But it's like screaming at a wall. You cannot you cannot argue with somebody.
I know. Yeah, no, I know. But it's interesting to hear you talk about how things are in Europe, because I mean, obviously things are like that here in the U.S. They're very segregated. The scenes here, they kind of historically have been. But what we've always here been in the States have been kind of privy to the fact that the one thing that separated Europe from here was that it was a lot different in Europe, because you see a lot of those festivals with a bunch of different of subgenres, within metal and hard rock and stuff playing together. Where here you don't really get that as much. It's become a little bit more like that just because they just have to fit all these bands into one festival. There's not that many of them. Where in Europe, obviously, there's tons. But it's surprising, really, to hear that that's going on in Europe,
Yeah.
because we were always in the impression that it was in Europe. It was a lot different. It was definitely more inclusive and not as exclusive as it is
No,
here. Well,
no.
that's interesting.
With the exception of Hellfest, which takes
Mhm.
place in France, which has
Yeah.
all those crazy scenes. But it's a crazy festival. It's a 5-day festival with full of different scenes.
Hmm.
But this is an exception.
Hmm.
The general rule is that the metal bands are playing with metal bands. Rebellion Festival in Blackpool hosts only punk bands.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, it's like that. It's like that in Europe right now, and
Yeah.
even in small clubs, metal and punk bands don't, they don't get on the same billing. I mean,
Mm.
it's crazy. Just imagine that there's no violence right now at the shows, right? No violence
Hmm.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
Back in the 1980s, the violence was out of control in a show where Whiplash will play with the Cro-Mags, or Nuclear Assault will play with Leeway, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. Yet those shows still happened, and right now they don't happen because everybody. I think that it is a kind of a safe space. I don't want to get out of my safe space.
Mm.
I don't want.
Yeah.
I don't. And we have another bad. There's another bad thing in Europe is that people go to festivals right now, and
Hmm.
they spend most of the time outside socializing and drinking beers, and then getting inside, see the band that they like from the building, and then getting out. It's like they don't go for the show. It's like they go for the fear of missing out and showing. I was there too in the social media, so it's
Mm.
uh, uh, uh,
Now,
yeah.
do you see that happening? Do you see that happening with more of, is it more of the younger generation of the fans, or is it more the older generation of them?
Every generation right now,
Wow.
every
Wow.
generation.
Interesting. Hmm.
Every generation of fans is like they have I have to tell you something, Matt. In the early zeros I was working as a bouncer in gigs,
Okay.
and I have worked in bands like from Armored Saint to Marduk to uh, Grim Reaper, Hair
Mm.
Apparent, those kinds of bands. And those
Okay.
shows in Greece then, they weren't selling any tickets. I mean, there were like 20, 30, 50 people in the shows. It was
Wow.
like, and right now, because, everybody goes to a show and says, oh, look, I'm here too. Everybody goes to the show to show off in the social media. It's crazy.
Mm. That's crazy, man. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's not even about the music as much anymore. I know it's, well,
Yeah.
and going to my next, thing I wanted to talk about here was just, when we talk about crossover sound and style, it was the one thing about it was, and it's kind of like you were talking about, really, it was really stemmed from, around early 80s to about 89, really, obviously on the onset of the 90s, everything became more to sort of groovy and more urban, influence and so forth within hardcore and metal and so forth. But one of the things that a lot of the genres over the years have had, like thrash has really had really a strong comeback or a resurgence or rebirth, right? Um, but to me, I think I mean, and this, I'm not saying crossover has gone completely away. It has. I mean, there's still plenty of bands. I mean, there's a band like Power Trip. They were obviously, I think, one of the more bigger, more recent, bigger crossover bands. Obviously, Municipal Waste is another. Toxic Holocaust. Those are the ones that come off the top of my head. But there's a couple of smaller bands. A band called Rhythm of Fear out of Miami area. Life Cycles out of Texas. These are all very influenced in terms of crossover bands. But it never really had sort of this, like I said, pure resurgence where, you know, um, bands were coming out and saying, "Yeah, we're a crossover band. No, we're not thrash. We're not punk. We're crossover." it's become sort of the label of itself really has become sort of, obsolete. It's almost like people don't want to use that, term or tag anymore. Like I said, even though it's not necessarily dead, there just wasn't never a rebirth or revival of it. And I wonder, like, as you're just talking about this, of because it was this blending of the two genres, and because everything is, like you said, more purist and conservative now, is it like no one really wants to go? I don't, they want nothing to do with each other again. Like you said, it's just like everyone's segregated once again, and it really just goes to show of what I guess a unique time that really was for that to have happened, and just the fact that since then everyone's, like I said, back in their corners, and no one really wants to embrace that. Like I said, it's unfortunate. It's sad. Like you said, I know a lot of it. Like you mentioned, it has to do with labels. I know maybe marketing reasons. Maybe they don't want to take that chance marketing wise, and because neither genre wants to be identified with each other. I guess again, they just don't want to they don't want to risk using that and have it. No one really be interested in it because of the tag. I mean, why do you think the crossover itself has failed to have that sort of revival that thrash had?
Well, I think, Matt, that there are crossover bands right now but those crossover bands have been infiltrated in hardcore. I mean, like bands like Mind Force. Mind Force have a total leeway worship, right?
Sure.
Combust.
Combust. Yeah, you're right. Combust is one.
In Human Nature from the UK, those are bands that have a definite hardcore background, and they're incorporated in hardcore. So right now, crossover is infiltrated in hardcore. Municipal Waste, on their first record, Waste and Mold, they started as a crossover band. Total crossover band. They were based in hardcore. Their record was out on 6 Weeks record, and hardcore, a pure hardcore label. But when they evolved and went to Earache, they started using the thrash tag all the time. It's like bigger labels like Earache, Nuclear Blast, Century Media. Those kind of labels don't want to use this tag purely for marketing reasons. But yeah, there are crossover bands, obviously, but I think that they're incorporating the hardcore scene, whereas the crossover bands, the bands that have crossover tendencies or are crossover, or have some crossover that belong to metal scene, they don't, expose it. That we're crossover. We're not just a thrash band or a pizza thrash band or whatever. The term pizza thrash is the worst term I've ever heard in my life.
What is that? I mean, I the only thing I think about pizza thrash is I remember there's this thrash band out of Spain, Chrysix, and they sung about pizza and stuff like that. I mean, does it have anything to do with that?
Well, it's like the bands that they are crossover, but they play. They're more lighthearted, and their lyrics are more on the funny side of things. You could call
goofy stuff. Okay.
You can goofy stuff. You can call the mucky pop of today.
Okay. Yeah.
but Mikey Pop was crossover, full stop.
Yes. Yeah, I love that band. Great crossover band. Oh yeah, love Mikey Pop. I want to have a little fun before we wrap things up, Alex. I don't usually like to do these lists and stuff like that, but we're going to do a couple of them here. Okay. Top 5. We're going to do not major lists, just tough. I know it's going to be difficult, man, but we got to do this. And one of the things I wanted to tell you too is props for mentioning. I know in Crossover the Edge, you mentioned a band. They're from my hometown in Queens Village. Norman Bates and the Showerheads. Not many people know about Norman Bates and the Showerheads, but I was really impressed that you had that in there in one of your top albums of Crossover ever.
Yeah, their style was that was a different crossover. It was like a more rocking punk metal. Which was great. It was and funny. This record, their first record, their only record, I got that guy in Scotland for peanuts about 25 years ago. Wow. And I was like, wow, what's that? And my head exploded because it was very rocking. It was very rocking hardcore. Sadly I couldn't find anybody from the band this time. to include him with a special feature in the book. I wrote a few things about Norman Bates and the Sourheads, of course, but I couldn't find anybody. I don't know if lots of people passed away since 2019.
Yeah.
There's another band from Queens, I think, in that book that they have the similar style. They were the Beast from New York. They were
Beast,
from
yeah.
they
They're
were
from
from
Queens,
Queens
yeah.
too. I didn't know you were originally from Queens. We are.
Oh, yeah.
I have stayed in Queens, and
Okay.
we're going to stay again in Queens in about 3 weeks from now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I really like the Queens, man. It's like.
Are you going to stay in? I would just assume you'd want to go to Astoria. That's a very big Greek area in
No,
Queens.
man, no.
No, you want to get away from the Greek? And that's where Leeway's from too, is Astoria. They're from Astoria. So there's a lot of history there. But yeah, it's a very big Greek neighborhood. Yeah.
I know,
Born
man.
and raised in Queens.
But no, sorry for me, man. Please.
I know what you mean. All right. So I want to do a couple of lists here, man. Just really quick. Give me your top 5 crossover bands from Europe.
From Europe.
Yeah, stop your head.
Raw Power.
Yeah.
Raw Power is the first.
Sure.
Broken Bones.
Okay.
Sacrilege UK. Rumble Militia from Germany. Rumble Militia from Germany. You
gotta have Discharge in there, no?
Discharge are
No, huh?
we had Broken Bones, so no Discharge. And
true.
On a different kind of crossover, the crust punk metal crossover, this should have been Hellbastard.
Okay. Very cool. Top 5 US crossover bands.
Come on, man. US. Okay. Cro-Mags, Ludicrist, Crumbsuckers. Oh, man. 3 out of 3 are from New York. Come on. Add to Adjustment. Add to Adjustment, definitely. XL.
And XL. Very cool. Yeah, that's about 3 or 4 on my list there, too. And last, you got to give me your top 5 crossover records of all time.
Oh, man. Of all time. DRI, Four of a Kind.
Okay.
Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond Possession is Beyond Possession. Leeway. Man. Desperate Measures. Okay.
Nice. So you're a Desperate Measures guy like me over Born to Expire, huh?
Oh, well.
A little bit. It's a little bit. I just give it a little edge.
I love Born to Expire.
Of course.
And while I didn't initially get into Desperate Measures, once I got into its darker, more moody style, I was. It's one of my favorite records ever.
Same here.
Yep. Yeah. And number 5, it's Broken Bones with Bone Crusher.
Okay. Very cool, man. I love it. Great lists. So let's just go ahead. We're going to bring it up again one more time for everyone. Tear It Down, How Crossover Bridge Metal and Hardcore Punk. It's available now for purchase. I mean, a must-have for everyone out there who loves hardcore punk and metal. Alex, where is the best place that people should go to purchase the book? Just tell us, everything where everyone can find this and pick it up.
Okay. You can get the book if you are, from... Okay, I'm gonna tell it right now. Just for people watching this show, you're going to have a code. It's called Tear It Down 20 capitals. If you go to the Earth Island books, just feel free to order the book, as many books as you want, and put on the tag in the checkout, Tear It Down 20, and you get a 20% discount.
Wow. Can't beat that, everybody. Can't beat that. So that's at Earth Island Books, correct? Is that earthislandbooks.com? Is that the website?
They are collaborating with D Wolf Publishing in Philadelphia, in Philly. So there's not going to be a problem with the whole postage and stuff like that. Other than that, it's on Barnes, on Amazon. It's everywhere.
It's
So
everywhere. I know.
so you can. It's your choice. Really, it's your choice. All that matters to me is if you do get the book, read the book, buy some records from the bands,
Hmm.
not just post pictures with it on your Facebook. Okay, pick some records, guys. Support the
Uh,
bands, help the bands make it to the next day, make it to the next level, to the next record, to the next gig. This means
mhm.
so, and I will be more than happy if somebody sends me a message. Generally, I'm very happy when a guy that I don't know sends me a message and says, "Oh man, I read about that band in your book, and this
Mhm.
band really blew me away. That record is fantastic. Thank you for that." This is the biggest compliment that somebody can do.
Sure. I mean, well, that's what really it's doing is like you said, you're educating people on these bands. I mean, there's a bunch of bands, and like I said, that I've read about that. I'm like, oh, I never heard of this band, and I checked them out. I'm like, holy crap, this
McGrath,
band's awesome. You know.
McGrath,
So
yeah, man.
yeah, McRed. Okay, I have to check out McRed. I did see that in here, but I didn't check those guys out yet. But yeah, there's so much. I mean, that's the thing is like I said, this is whether it's crossover the edge, which is like I said, an encyclopedia pretty much of all this type of music, that blend of hardcore and metal in the 80s, or whether it's like you said, tear it down, or even look, I mean, and what's the other thing? I mean, what we briefed on it just for a minute before. Heroes of the Metal Underground, the definitive guide to 1980s American independent metal. I started digging into that. And I mean, you were very kind, obviously, send me that PDF, and I started. I mean, between that your dissertation, I got so much stuff to read, man, in the future here. I'm so looking forward to it. But I can't wait to finish that one because I mean, I'm definitely going to probably have you on again to talk about that book because I don't think there's enough people out there that know that book's out there, Heroes of the Metal Underground, and that's obviously a completely different too, sort of scene. Obviously, it's not the hardcore, punk thrash scene. It's more of the traditional metal, independent metal thing in the '80s, which I think is, I mean, what I read so far, I'm so into it. So you got, I mean, like you said, is that those are three books that you've got out there, correct, right now? And do you have anything else that you want to push
Four.
while we're on here, Alex?
There are four books.
There's four. Okay.
Yeah, there's another one book. We Can Be the New Wind. They can find it in Earth Island books.
Okay.
This is a crossover book, but a different kind of crossover.
Mm,
It's the second crossover. My second crossover love is bands that belonged either to hardcore or punk or even garage in the 1980s. They went on to adopt more melodic style into their music,
mm,
but like the crossover with the alternative rock scene. Bands,
okay.
bands like Husker Du, Replacements, Doughboys, uh, Soul Asylum,
Mm,
the
okay.
bands that were originally hardcore or punk or garage bands that went to incorporate, went to crossover into a different territory. So
Mhm.
yeah, this book is out too. It's a huge one, guys. You can literally kill somebody with that book. It's 800
Yeah.
pages.
Well, no, and that's great because I mean, I'm sure that like a good example of that was a band like SSD Control too, right? I mean, they were one of those original hardcore punk bands, and they became sort of like a hard rock band.
Yeah,
They morphed into that. I
this
mean,
was
COC, right? COC was a crossover band, and obviously they're completely different. Now, so many of those bands. That's what's really interesting too with the crossovers. There's so many bands that as we talked about earlier, they progress, but they even progress, like you said, to a completely different style. They got really stripped down, maybe a lot of the edge, and got a little more commercial. So it's just, yeah, it's a never, it's just, the music in the '80s and the '70s. I mean, there was so much of it, and it was so serious, and so, I mean, these bands, it's just too bad that obviously because of the industry and the way things are today, there's no money in it, there's no artist development in it, and because of that, obviously the music has suffered, or I should say, not so much the music suffered, but I think the importance of the music. You don't have a lot of musicians now that want to progress and become better musicians. It's sort of like just happy with what it is. Like you said, it's more about social media and everything, more so than it is about the lyrics and the musicianship, unfortunately. But the greatest thing is you putting these books out. It's really opened up, I think, a lot of people to go back. If there's nothing really going on now or that's satisfying their palate, there's so much going back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s that is out there that people don't even know are out there. And that's what's great about your books is it really opens up people, gives them a reference to where they can find that stuff. Because I mean, it's endless. There's just so much. I mean, you got 8,000 records. I mean, obviously, you're a living example of it, Alex. So yeah, so it's great to see you doing this with these books, man, and I really appreciate you coming on here. Anything else you want to let the viewers know before we wrap it up?
Matt, thank you so much for everything. It was such a pleasure, and I'd love to meet you in person because I'm planning after the whole presentations in New York City, London, Greece, coming to Los Angeles, coming West Coast about August maybe, or
Okay.
even or later. So we will definitely meet up.
Yeah.
One final thing that I would like to add, guys, girls, everyone. Sorry. Pick up this record.
What we got there?
What we got there? We got a band that they are from Australia called Steroid.
Okay.
Steroid, and their record is called Chainmail Commandos. What this band is about is that they blend a very lo-fi punk rock with new wave British heavy metal and chipmunk-like vocals. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. it's
totally out Steroid.
Yeah, it's totally odd and weird. Totally, man. But it's great. Once you're hooked in it, you're hooked. People would listen to the vocals and say, "What the hell is that? It's a chipmunk, right?" No, it's a man. no, don't worry. But yeah, guys, listen to it. It's an example, a crossover example that isn't the definition, but it's something that combines so many things that people that they're either in punk or in metal, they're gonna like it, definitely.
Awesome.
So get this record, guys. Don't buy my
Steroid
record.
Well, buy both, book and the Steroid record, right? Fantastic. All right, Alex. Well, thanks again. Tear it down. Go ahead and check that out. Pick it up. earthislandbooks.com. And so Alex, we're definitely going to have you on another time for sure. I'll have you on here. We'll talk more about this. And good luck with the book. And we will speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Matt. Anything you want from me, from my side, I'm all yours, man. Thank you again.